Hello everyone, I'm Justin and this is every confirmed and rumored character in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness releasing May 6th. Real quick, if you're watching this video and you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to know any time we upload a new video. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness looks to continue expanding the multiverse outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and likely plans to incorporate characters from Marvel projects outside of the MCU. So we've put together a list of 7 confirmed and 33 rumored characters that we'll likely see in the movie. Also really quick, this video does contain spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, as well as other films in the MCU and the Multiverse of Madness trailers. So if you haven't watched anything yet, then I suggest you do that before coming back and watching the rest of this video. The first of the confirmed characters is Dr. Stephen Strange, aka Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. We're first introduced to Strange in his movie Doctor Strange, released in 2016. Strange was once a renowned but arrogant neurosurgeon until a car accident severely injured his hands. When modern medicine failed him, he embarked on a journey to Kamar-Taj, where he was trained by the Ancient One. He eventually gave up on healing his hands and became a master of the mystic arts, serving as Earth's protector against any mystical threats. He fought alongside the Avengers against Thanos and was an important part in why they were able to defeat him. He's also fought against multiversal threats before, alongside Spider-Man, in Spider-Man No Way Home, released in 2021. And based on what we've seen in promotional footage, it looks like there will be multiple variants of Strange from different universes appearing in the film as well. Next is Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. Wanda has appeared in multiple MCU projects after being first introduced in Avengers Age of Ultron, released in 2015. Wanda Maximoff is a mutant with the ability to harness chaos magic, and with power that exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme. She suffered multiple crushing losses throughout her life, including the deaths of her parents when she was young, her brother during their battle alongside the Avengers against Ultron, and the man she loved, Vision, a member of the Avengers who was killed by Thanos. In WandaVision, released in 2021, Wanda used her magic to create a town where she had control over everyone and everything that happened, and to recreate Vision. In this dream world she created, she and Vision have twin sons, Billy and Tommy, who were born with superpowers, but eventually Wanda must give up her dream life after realizing she was imprisoning innocent people within it. But she still goes on to begin studying this chaos magic in an attempt to actually bring her dream family to life. Next is Karl Mordo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Mordo first appeared in Doctor Strange, released in 2016, as a close ally to the Ancient One, and would help recruit and train future sorcerers such as Doctor Strange. He and Strange later fought alongside one another against Caecilius, a former member of the Masters of the Mystic Arts who went rogue, and Dormammu, an interdimensional entity who wields apocalyptic levels of supernatural power, and the ruler of the Dark Dimension. But during their battle, they learned that the Ancient One had been drawing power from the Dark Dimension, which was taught to be forbidden. Following her death, Mordo still fought alongside Strange to defeat the Zealots and Dormammu, but in order to defeat them, Strange had to break the rules just as the Ancient One had to, in order to protect humanity and use the Time Stone. Mordo considers this violating the natural law and says the bill will come due. Over the next few years, he began finding former students of the Ancient One and extracting and absorbing their power. Next, we have Wong, played by Benedict Wong. Wong also first appeared in Doctor Strange as a replacement librarian for the Sanctum's ancient literature after their previous librarian was killed by Caecilius and the Zealots, and he's proven to be a very powerful sorcerer on multiple occasions since then. He assisted Strange in his studies that led to him becoming the Sorcerer Supreme following the Ancient One's death, and also fought alongside Strange and Mordo against the Zealots and Dormammu. He continued to fight by Strange's side in Earth's battle against Thanos, but when Thanos snapped half of all life out of existence in Avengers Infinity War, released in 2018, including Doctor Strange, Wong was luckily spared and was then given the title of Sorcerer Supreme and has acted as it since, even with Strange's return in Avengers Endgame, released in 2019. Next is Christine Palmer, played by Rachel McAdams. Christine Palmer also first appeared in the Doctor Strange film as Stephen's love interest. A fellow doctor, Christine worked alongside Strange for years before his car accident, and she tried her best to help him in his time of need before he left to embark on his journey to Kamar-Taj. The two were never officially together throughout the film, and it's only mentioned a couple times that they had a relationship previously, but their scenes together display their love for one another well. Next is America Chavez, played by Xochitl Gomez. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will actually be America Chavez's first appearance in the MCU, or any live-action Marvel project. But there is still a bit to know about the character from the comics, although I don't know if they'll keep everything about her origin the same in the film. America Chavez originates from the realm of the magical Earth spirit known as the Demiurge, a place called the Utopian Parallel which exists outside of time in the multiverse. When America was 6 years old, the Utopian Parallel was attacked, and America's mothers sacrificed themselves to defeat the threat. America absorbed some of the magical essence of the Demiurge, and was thrown into the multiverse, where she eventually made her way to Earth and became a hero. America not only has the powers of flight, super strength, and super speed, but also the ability to open gateways to any world in the multiverse. Like I said, I'm not sure if this will all be accurate to the film's adaptation of the character, but it's all the information we know on the character as of now. And the last of the confirmed characters is Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart. Recently, Marvel dropped their first full-length trailer for Multiverse of Madness, and although we don't see his face, we do hear the voice of Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart has featured in Marvel projects before as Professor X in the X-Men films, and although it's not confirmed if that's the variant of Professor X we'll be seeing, I'm 99% sure he'll be playing the character again. Charles Xavier was born a mutant with immense powers and abilities, specifically being one of the most powerful telepaths in the world. He would go on to become the leader and creator of the X-Men in an attempt to create peaceful coexistence between mutants and humanity. Also, although Patrick Stewart's older version of the character is basically confirmed, the younger version of the character from the same X-Men universe played by James McAvoy is still heavily rumored to appear. Now, getting into all the rumored characters, we first have two variants of characters that have never appeared in any Marvel film or series. The first of which being Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski. John Krasinski has been rumored to join the MCU for a while now, and it really seems that he'll finally be appearing in Multiverse of Madness as a new variant of Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic has appeared before in previous Marvel projects outside of the MCU, and I'll talk about one of those variants a bit later, but it looks like John Krasinski will be playing an MCU-originated variant of the character, so I'm not sure if they'll be keeping his origin the same as the one I'll be explaining. Dr. Reed Richards was a scientist and inventor who had been considered the smartest man on Earth, with mastery of all sciences. Richards gained his superhuman abilities, including dense flesh, elongation, and shapeshifting, after being exposed to high levels of cosmic radiation during a trip to space alongside his best friend Ben Grimm, then girlfriend Sue Storm, and her younger brother Johnny Storm. All four gained superhuman powers and together became the Fantastic Four. Next is Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, played by Tom Cruise. An Iron Man variant has already appeared before in the MCU, played by Robert Downey Jr. of course, but it's been heavily rumored that Tom Cruise would be playing a new variant, likely from a different universe, and will first be appearing in Multiverse of Madness. Once again, I'm not sure exactly what his backstory will be, but I'm guessing it'll be similar to that of the MCU's original Iron Man. Following the death of his parents, Tony Stark became CEO of his father's company, Stark Industries. A cocky but brilliant inventor, Tony became one of the world's most powerful men, and lived the playboy lifestyle for many years before he was kidnapped by the Ten Rings. The terrorists offered him freedom only if he created weapons for them, but Tony instead created an armored suit that he used to escape. He continued to build upon this original suit, and would eventually become known across the world as Iron Man. And the last of the new character variants rumored to appear is an unknown character played by Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell has a well-documented friendship with Multiverse of Madness director Sam Raimi, with the two launching their careers together with the Evil Dead film released in 1981. Campbell has since cameoed in various Raimi projects, most notably throughout his Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire, who I'll talk more about in a bit. And it was rumored that Campbell was supposed to become that universe's Mysterio, seen most recently in Spider-Man Far From Home played by Jake Gyllenhaal. So there's a chance he could appear as a Mysterio variant in this film, or just have another random cameo. Now, getting into characters that have been rumored to appear from previous Marvel projects, we'll start with a few from the MCU, the first of which being the Ancient One played by Tilda Swinton. The Ancient One first appeared in the first Doctor Strange film, and an alternate variant of her also appeared in Avengers Endgame. Before meeting Strange, the Ancient One was the Sorcerer Supreme and leader of the Masters of the Mystic Arts. For centuries, she protected Earth from any mystical threats, while also educating and training future sorcerers such as Strange. But during a battle alongside Strange and Mordo against Caecilius and the Zealots, she was fatally wounded and died, only after giving Strange the advice he needed to defeat Dormammu. Next is Vision, played by Paul Bettany. Vision, an incredibly powerful synthezoid, was first introduced into the MCU as Tony Stark's personal AI, Jarvis, and was given life during the Avengers battle against Ultron with the use of the Mind Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, that would from then on be embedded into his forehead. He and Wanda began falling in love during Captain America Civil War, released in 2016, and would continue building their relationship from 2016 to Avengers Infinity War in 2018. But their love story would come to an end after Thanos came to Earth to collect the Mind Stone, following the collection of the 5 other Infinity Stones. To prevent Thanos from completing his mission, Vision asked Wanda to destroy the stone, which in turn would kill him, since she was the only one with the power to do so. And so she did, but Thanos was able to go back in time using the Time Stone and remove the Mind Stone from Vision's forehead himself. The Avengers would eventually go on to defeat Thanos, and following their victory were the events of WandaVision, where Wanda recreated Vision, although he was only able to live inside her hex. His actual body was repurposed by SWORD, an extra-governmental intelligence agency dedicated to protecting Earth from both extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional threats, and was sent to kill Wanda for imprisoning a town of innocent people. But Wanda's recreated Vision helped bring back his memories, and so this white Vision left the hex, and we're still waiting to see what'll happen with the character next. Next is Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Pietro Maximoff was first introduced along with his sister Wanda in Avengers Age of Ultron. They lost their parents when they were young to a bombing caused by the United States Air Force using Stark Industries weapons, causing them to develop a hatred for the US and Tony Stark. Years later, he and Wanda volunteered to take part in experiments held by Hydra, resulting in the two gaining superpowers, with Pietro gaining the ability to move at superhuman speed. They originally worked alongside Ultron against the Avengers, but switched sides when they learned of Ultron's true intentions. During the the battle, Pietro was killed, sacrificing himself to save Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, and a young boy, much to his sister's grief. Another variant of the character was introduced in X-Men Days of Future Past, released in 2014, played by Evan Peters. But I doubt this variant will return in the MCU since they'd already brought in Peters to play a fake version of the character controlled by Agatha Harkness in WandaVision. Next is Agatha Harkness, played by Kathryn Hahn. Agatha Harkness was first introduced in WandaVision as a civilian named Agnes in the Hex, who was actually an undercover witch. During the Salem witch trials, Agatha was accused of practicing dark magic by her own coven, who she killed as a result. Over 300 years later, she sensed the presence of chaos magic radiating from the Hex Wanda created, and became obsessed with harnessing her magic. She was nearly able to do so, but Wanda managed to defeat her in the end, becoming the Scarlet Witch and stripping Agatha of her powers, who was condemned to live out her life as Agnes in Westview. Next is Monica Rambeau, played by Teyonah Parris. Monica Rambeau was first introduced in Captain Marvel, released in 2019, as the daughter of Maria Rambeau, a former US Air Force pilot alongside close friend Carol Danvers, who later founded SWORD. And Monica was reintroduced as an adult in WandaVision. In WandaVision, we learned that Maria had been sick with cancer before the Avengers' fight against Thanos, and when Thanos snapped half of all life out of existence, that included her daughter Monica. So when the Avengers eventually defeated Thanos and brought everyone back, Monica returned to learn that her mother had died during the blip. Following her return, she went back to working with SWORD, whose priority at the moment was helping those inside the Hex Wanda created. So she managed to get inside the Hex for a brief period before being caught by Wanda and banished. But she eventually decided to help Wanda against SWORD after learning the director of SWORD, Tyler Hayward, illegally rebuilt Vision to use as a sentient weapon. So she re-entered the Hex, but crossing the Hex's barrier multiple times caused Rambeau's DNA to be rewritten, resulting in her developing superhuman abilities. Next is Peggy Carter, aka Captain Carter, played by Hayley Atwell. Peggy Carter first appeared in the MCU in Captain America: The First Avenger, released in 2011, as an agent of the SSR during World War II, who helped transform Steve Rogers, who over time she'd fall in love with, into a super soldier known as Captain America. But in an alternate universe shown in Marvel's What If series, she's instead transformed into a super soldier and becomes Captain Carter, leading the Allied forces in the US's war against Hydra. She still falls in love with Steve Rogers in this universe, but similar to the main MCU, their time together is cut short when she sacrifices herself to stop the champion of Hydra, going through a wormhole from which she emerged almost 70 years later. We also see her fighting against multiversal threats after being summoned by the Watcher to help protect the multiverse from an even more powerful Ultron variant. Next is the Watcher, played by Jeffrey Wright. Watchers had appeared in the MCU before, particularly in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 mid-credit scene, but there were none like that of the Watcher introduced in What If. The Watcher observes the multiverse from his place in the nexus of all realities, and along with his fellow Watchers, abides by an oath that prohibits him from interfering with events occurring within the realities he observes. But after an Ultron variant threatens to destroy the multiverse, he has no choice but to intervene and summons Avengers from different universes to help protect the multiverse. Next is Ultron, played by James Spader or Ross Marquand. Ultron was first introduced in Avengers: Age of Ultron, voiced by James Spader as the second Avengers level threat, having been originally created by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner as an artificial intelligence peacekeeping program using decrypted code derived from the Mind Stone. However, upon accessing the internet, Ultron deemed humanity itself as the greatest threat to peace on Earth, and attempted to commit extinction-level genocide against them using an army of Ultron sentries. The Avengers were able to defeat and destroy this variant of Ultron, but in a separate universe shown in What If, Ultron, now voiced by Ross Marquand, completes his mission, successfully uploading himself into the body that would later host Vision, before unleashing Earth's entire arsenal of nuclear weapons upon humanity. Thanos still arrives on Earth in this universe with the other 5 Infinity Stones, but Ultron effortlessly kills him and takes the stones for himself. After gaining near unlimited power, he becomes aware of the multiverse and even fights against the Watcher, leading the Watcher to form the Avengers with heroes from different universes to defeat Ultron and protect the multiverse. Next is Loki Laufeyson, played by Tom Hiddleston. Loki was first introduced in Thor, released in 2011, and was the first Avengers level threat in the Avengers, released in 2012. Loki is the biological son of Laufey, ruler of the Frost Giants in Jotunheim, but was adopted by Odin, king of Asgard, after being left for dead shortly after his birth. As the adopted brother of Thor, Loki felt that his father always preferred Thor, and so when Thor was eventually set to become the new king of Asgard, he sabotaged the coronation by letting the Frost Giants attack Asgard, leading Thor to seek vengeance on Jotunheim, which resulted in Thor's banishment to Earth for disturbing the peace. Eventually, Thor learned of what Loki had done and returned back home to end his reign, and destroyed the Bifrost Bridge to thwart his attempt to declare war on the 9 realms. With Odin disapproving of his actions, Loki allowed himself to fall through the deep abyss of space, later gaining possession of the Mind Stone and attempted to take over planet Earth with the help of the Chitauri army, but was defeated by the Avengers. In the MCU's main universe, Loki is killed years later by Thanos following his reconciliation with his brother, but in a separate universe introduced in Avengers Endgame, he manages to gain possession of the Tesseract, which holds the Space Stone, during the Avengers time heist. We learn in Marvel's Loki series, released in 2021, that this apparently wasn't meant to happen, and so he was imprisoned by the Time Variance Authority. This series explains a lot of how the multiverse works according to the MCU, as Loki, alongside his love interest Sylvie, fights against the TVA for preventing free will. Next is Sylvie Laufeydottir, Waller, played by Sophie DiMartino. Sylvie was first introduced in Loki as a Loki variant who escaped imprisonment from the TVA when she was a young girl, and went on the run for years after the fact, living throughout different timelines. She sought revenge on the TVA and the Timekeepers, who were thought to be the creators of the Sacred Timeline, and put together a plan to destroy them. She formed an alliance with the Loki introduced in Avengers Endgame, and eventually the two fell in love, working together to fight the TVA and discovering that the Timekeepers were fakes, created by an even higher power, He Who Remains. They eventually find He Who Remains, who explains to them why the Sacred Timeline was necessary and that there would be severe consequences if he was killed. But still, against Loki's wishes, Sylvie enacted her revenge and killed He Who Remains, causing the multiverse to seemingly split apart. Next is Mobius M. Mobius, played by Owen Wilson. Mobius was first introduced in Loki as an agent of the TVA, who had worked alongside Loki to try and catch Sylvie until he learned of the TVA's lies and manipulations. He then helped Loki and Sylvie find He Who Remains before going back to the TVA in an attempt to set things right. But following the multiverse splitting apart, when Loki returns to the TVA, Mobius seemingly has no memory of who he is. And the last of the rumored characters that have first appeared in the MCU is Nathaniel Richards, aka He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors. He Who Remains was also first introduced in Loki as the man behind the TVA and the Sacred Timeline. This variant of Nathaniel Richards was a scientist who in the 31st century became the first to come in contact with alternate universes and other variants of himself. Although there was peace at first, eventually variants of himself attempted to conquer the other realities and a multiversal war ensued. So Richards weaponized Alioth, a trans-temporal entity that served as the guardian of the void and ended the war. He then founded the TVA to preserve the Sacred Timeline, which now consists of events that prevent the rise of his variants. Following his death, it appears one of those variants has taken over the TVA and looks to conquer the multiverse. Now getting into characters that were first introduced in films outside of the MCU, we first have Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played by Tobey Maguire. This variant of Peter Parker was first introduced in Spider-Man, released in 2002, and also featured in its two sequels released in 2004 and 2007 respectively. As an intelligent high school student whose parents passed away when he was young, so he was raised by his Aunt May and Uncle Ben. One day while on a class field trip, he was bitten by a radioactive spider and gained incredible powers, and after his Uncle Ben was killed, Peter, motivated by the memory of his uncle, began using his powers to help the people of New York as Spider-Man. He recently appeared again after 14 years in Spider-Man No Way Home after being accidentally transported to Strange's universe, and fought alongside Doctor Strange in the MCU's Spider-Man variant against multiversal threats. Next is Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played by Andrew Garfield. This variant of Peter Parker was first introduced in the Amazing Spider-Man films, released in 2012 and 2014 respectively, as an intelligent high school student whose parents died in a plane crash when he was young, so he was raised by his Aunt May and Uncle Ben. One day, he was bitten by a radioactive spider and gained incredible powers, and after his Uncle Ben was killed, Peter, motivated by the memory of his uncle, began using his powers to help the people of New York as Spider-Man. This Spider-Man also fought alongside Doctor Strange in the MCU's variant of Spider-Man against multiversal threats in Spider-Man No Way Home. Next is Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds first portrayed the character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, released in 2009, but the character was given a reboot in the Deadpool films released in 2016 and 2018. Before becoming Deadpool, Wade Wilson was a special force operative, who by 2016 worked as a freelance mercenary. After meeting escort Vanessa Carlyle, the two fell in love and spent the next year together before getting engaged. But after proposing, he suddenly collapsed to the floor and later learned that he had cancer. In an attempt to cure his cancer, he agreed to take part in a secret program that he learned later was planning on turning him into a superpowered slave. Wade was able to escape following an experiment that severely disfigured his face and skin, but also gave him an accelerated healing factor that cured his cancer. With his new abilities and a dark, twisted sense of humor, Deadpool became a feared and incredibly effective assassin. Next is Eric Lenshier, aka Magneto, played by Ian McKellen and/or Michael Fassbender. While Ian McKellen was the first to portray the character in the X-Men films, Michael Fassbender also played a younger version of the same character, first appearing in X-Men First Class. Eric Lenshier was born a mutant with powers different but equal to those of Charles Xavier, with him being able to manipulate magnetic fields to his will and control metallic objects. He too was a founding member of the X-Men, but left the group and would often battle against them since he believed that mutants should fight back against their human oppressors instead of trying to create peaceful coexistence between them. Next is Logan, aka the Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine appeared for the first time in X-Men, released in 2000, and last appeared 17 years later in Logan, released in 2017. Logan, born James Howlett, was a mutant born with an accelerated healing factor and retractable claws made of dense bone, until his skeleton was surgically bonded with a virtually indestructible metal named adamantium that reshaped his claws into blades. He would become the co-leader of the X-Men and earned a legendary reputation as one of Earth's greatest heroes. It's also been rumored that we could see a new actor playing Wolverine in Multiverse of Madness, with the current top candidate being the former Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe. Next is Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, played by Halle Berry. Halle Berry's Storm also first appeared in the 2000 X-Men film, and last appeared in X-Men Days of Future Past, released in 2014. Aurora Monroe was also born a mutant with the ability to control weather, and was one of the original members of the X-Men after being taken in by Charles Xavier when she was young, and becoming a teacher at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Next is Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, Cyclops, played by James Marsden. Also first appearing in the 2000 X-Men film and last appearing in X-Men Days of Future Past was James Marsden's Cyclops. Scott Summers was born a mutant with the ability to fire an optic blast from his eyes, and was another original member of the X-Men after being taken in by Xavier and becoming a teacher at his institute. Next, we have Jean Grey, aka Phoenix, played by Famke Janssen and/or Sophie Turner. Sophie Turner first portrayed the character in X-Men Apocalypse, released in 2016, and again in X-Men Dark Phoenix, released in 2019, while an older version of the character was played by Famke Janssen in the multiple other X-Men films. But due to the X-Men films' inconsistent continuity, this character actually has two different origin stories, so I'm just gonna say both of them. The origin story given for Jean Grey in X-Men The Last Stand, released in 2006, was that she was born a mutant and first discovered her abilities of telepathy and telekinesis before being met by Eric Lenshier and Charles Xavier. Xavier feared that she wouldn't be able to control her power and so created psychic barriers to restrain them, which ultimately caused her to develop a suppressed alter ego known as the Phoenix. She would go on to attend Xavier's Institute for the years following this, and eventually realized her true power and became a member of the X-Men. The origin story given for the character in X-Men Dark Phoenix was that when she was 8 years old, Jean accidentally caused a car accident with her telekinetic abilities that claimed the lives of her parents. Shortly after, she was met by Charles Xavier, who brought her to his institute. Jean was afraid of her powers for years after the fact, but she would eventually overcome her fear in the X-Men's battle against Apocalypse, and later merged with the Phoenix Force while in space, which amplified her abilities even more. Next is Eric Brooks, aka Blade, played by Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes portrayed the character in each of the 3 Blade films released in 1998, 2002, and 2004 respectively. Before Eric Brooks was born, his mother Vanessa was bitten by a vampire while she was pregnant, and apparently died while giving birth to him. Eric inherited her vampire powers, but without any of their weaknesses, and over time became known as the legendary Daywalker Blade, using his abilities to hunt down vampires. Next is Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, played by Eric Bana. This variant of Dr. Bruce Banner was only seen in the Hulk film released in 2003. Before Bruce was born, his father, Dr. David Banner, ran experiments on himself to improve his human DNA, and when Bruce was born, he inherited his father's mutated genes. 30 years later, Bruce had become a brilliant scientist until one day the facility's gamma sphere got out of control and exposed Bruce to a deadly amount of gamma radiation that combined with his already altered DNA and transformed him into a giant rage-fueled monster known as the Hulk when he's angered, provoked, or excited. Next, we have Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, played by Ben Affleck. While the MCU just introduced their own variant of Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home, played by Charlie Cox, the character was once portrayed outside of the MCU by Ben Affleck in the 2003 Daredevil film. When he was a young boy, Matt Murdock was blinded after nearly being hit by a forklift that pierced a barrel of hazardous waste while avoiding him, and the substance landed in Matt's eyes. Although he was blinded, all of his other senses were enhanced to superhuman levels, and as an adult, he lives a double life as a lawyer and a masked vigilante going by the name Daredevil. Next, we have Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, played by Ioan Gruffudd. Although it's more likely we see a new variant of Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness, it's still rumored that Ioan Gruffudd's portrayal of the character from the 2 Fantastic Four films released in 2005 and 2007 will make an appearance. Reed Richards was a brilliant mathematician and physicist who gained superhuman abilities including dense flesh, elongation, and shapeshifting after being exposed to high levels of cosmic radiation during a trip to space alongside his best friend Ben Grimm, then girlfriend Sue Storm, and her brother Johnny Storm. All 4 gained superhuman powers and together became the Fantastic Four. Next is Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch, played by Chris Evans. We've seen Chris Evans in the MCU before, of course as Captain America, but before the MCU even began, he portrayed the character of Johnny Storm in the 2 Fantastic Four films, who was also on the space mission led by Reed Richards that exposed them to high levels of cosmic radiation, which gave Johnny the ability to control ambient heat energy and transform his body into a fiery state, becoming known as the Human Torch and a founding member of the Fantastic Four. Next is Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, played by Jessica Alba. Another member of the Fantastic Four from the 2005 and 2007 films is Jessica Alba's Sue Storm, who is a genetics research scientist and girlfriend of Reed Richards, and also joined him on the space mission that gave them their powers, with her gaining the ability to become completely invisible and becoming known as the Invisible Woman. Next is Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, played by Michael Chiklis. The final member of the 2005 live-action Fantastic Four is Michael Chiklis' Ben Grimm, the best friend of Reed Richards who accompanied him on his space mission that resulted in them gaining their powers, with him gaining superhuman strength, speed, and durability. But unfortunately, the cosmic radiation also changed his physical appearance and transformed him into an orange rocky creature known as The Thing. Next is Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, played by Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane portrayed the character in the Punisher film released in 2007. Castle was a former US Army Delta Force operative and FBI agent who became involved with ruthless mob boss Howard Saint when an undercover operation got out of control and inadvertently caused the death of Howard's son Bobby. Howard, believing Castle killed his son, sent his men to kill Castle's entire family, forcing Frank to take matters into his own hands and become the anti-hero known as the Punisher. And the final rumored character for Multiverse of Madness is Johnny Blaze, aka Ghost Rider, played by Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage first portrayed the character in Ghost Rider, released in 2007, and also starred in its sequel, released in 2011. Johnny Blaze was a stunt motorcyclist who made a deal with the devil in an attempt to cure his father's cancer, but his father father died anyway, and the devil known as Mephisto turned him into a demon with a flaming skull known as Ghost Rider. And although Johnny has offered his soul back later, he chooses to own the curse and be the spirit of vengeance. There's also been rumors that they might just introduce a new variant of the character in Multiverse of Madness, played by a different actor, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that was every rumored and confirmed character to appear in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Let us know in the comments what character you're looking forward to seeing most, and make sure to let us know any characters you think we should have mentioned. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Marvel content like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.